Thank you all for joining us in person. I hope you enjoy the pizza. Yeah, very excited about this panel today. We have some really amazing people around campus and some amazing students that are here to tell their first generation stories and to think about how we can celebrate the contributions that our first gen students bring to the university and how we can help them in the future. So I'm just going to real briefly introduce each of our panelists, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to them and let them run the show. So first of all, we have Dr. Julia Martin, who's an associate professor of microbiology. As a first generation college student, Dr. Martin received her baccalaureate degree from Cal State Northridge and her doctoral degree from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Dr. Martin is an advocate for underrepresented and first generation students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. Next, we have Fisk Sheetz. Fisk is a fine arts major in their third year. They are a first-gen student from Southeast Idaho and work for TRIO Student Support Services here on campus. Next to Fisk, we have Jovany Leyva. Jovany is a junior double majoring in secondary education and history with an endorsement in government. He's a first-generation college student from St. Anthony, Idaho. On campus, he is the president of a political activism leadership student club named Los Estudiantes Después, and works for multiple TRIO departments, aiding college and secondary education students through their academic journey. He hopes to continue helping students through one day becoming a TRIO advisor and history government teacher. Next to Jovany, we have Reinalyn Echon, is a clinical professor with Bengal Bridge, inspired by her own experiences in higher education as a first-generation college student who benefited from an NIH grant-funded research program for underserved populations. She has found ways to pay it forward by working with TRIO college programs at ISU and now with Bengal Bridge, where she found peers who are just as passionate as she is about addressing barriers to education. I can vouch for that. And then last but certainly not least, we have Dr. James Pascali, who holds a doctorate in political science from Idaho State University, where his research mainly focuses on the politics of disability and how deaf identity development can lead to political activation within discourse surrounding disability. Having worked with first generation students as the program director of the TRIO McNair Scholars Program and now the high school equivalency program, his goal has been to create a place where everyone, regardless of background, can see themselves in higher education. So thank you all, and I will turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. It's great to be here and to be among such awesome and amazing people. And we're going to kind of approach the conversation of first generation students from a slightly different perspective. I think that we oftentimes have a pretty working understanding of what a first gen student is. But one thing that we often notice within our spaces is this notion of dwindling attrition. And students that are first generation students oftentimes end up leaving our spaces. So the primary focus here is dealing with that from the vantage of not just us professionals that work within the institution, but also from the student's perspective as well. So I have some slides here before we get into the panel here specifically. Wait, oh, there we go. I wanted to start with this quote first, because I think it highlights the importance of why students, why we should be making sure that our first generation students are progressing in their education and being successful. And it has to do with the ambitions and the goals that they set out for themselves and the reasons for why they want to be in these spaces. This doctoral student, Potan, quoted as saying, "I want to help redefine what it means for girls to be in STEM and change the narrative from you're a girl, but you're a scientist to you're a girl and you're a scientist," right? And it's this idea of increasing representation, not just for women in STEM, but first generation students in general. They come in here with these high ambitions. They want to propel their field forward and to increase the likelihood that they see others in higher education. But we have a problem, and that is what we call the dark side of education. It's nearly 40% of undergraduates in a bachelor's degree program. So about 38% of them were first generations. only 26% of those first generation college students actually went on to get their degrees. That's in comparison to 82% of non-first gen students. And some people in the room may be familiar with these statistics as well. Right, first generation students often lack institutional knowledge, right? The hidden curriculum, if you will, of education, they're not as clued into. And so because of that, that in itself poses challenges. Smaller social networks, the people that they connect with on campus, they may not always readily have these connections or how to build those connections.
Which is part of what's considered the hidden curriculum, is all of the non-academic written down in a student handbook expectations that we have of students, that the minute they become a college student, they're just expected to know, but we're never formally taught. So just to get everybody on the same page for terminology that we're going to be using.
Because of course, I assume knowledge, right? And that's part of the problem that we have with first generation.
You're the problem.
I am. Right here. But this also becomes even bigger of a gap when we start looking at graduate spaces and doctoral spaces specifically. So people like Potan oftentimes end up dropping out of their programs, right? In the US, 50% of doctoral students drop out of their programs before finishing. This is from the Chronicle of Higher Ed. The number one reason is negative relationships with their advisors specifically, right? This notion of what's expected of them and not fully being clued into what's expected of them, and in having this sort of contentious relationship with people that are expecting them to know these things, right? From the PhD students who reported having experienced workplace harassment, 66% identified their perpetrators as a person in a senior position or a person that was in direct authority over them, i.e. their mentors, right? That, you know, there's some instances of uncomfortable relationships that can develop in graduate school spaces specifically, and a lot of that I would assess comes from this disconnect between what is expected of them, most specifically, right? And this is compounded when you start factoring in things such as disability, right? That these numbers, these percentages start to decrease even further in terms of degree completion when you start having first-gen status with status such as disabilities themselves. And the truth is that the individuals that stand to benefit the most, those POTANs, right? They stand to benefit the most from education, oftentimes are the ones that the system ends up failing the most. And so what we end up doing in our spaces of working with first generation students is really playing a numbers game. We're trying to get as many first generation students to completion so that they themselves can move into positions in higher education and hopefully mentor students to help push them through the system as well, or help mentor them through and give them that hidden curriculum. But this ends up looking what Reinalyn and I affectionately call a meat grinder. Because first generation students, right, they become first generation faculty, first generation staff, right? Because they themselves are access points for the students that are on campus. But they themselves are in single digit numbers, right? And so what we end up having is we have faculty that are first generation professionals, faculty and staff that are in single digit numbers, but are oftentimes the sole access point for a lot of these students coming in, all the while having to do the expected sort of task in order to secure things such as tenure. Right?
And that mentorship is an additional service. And as faculty and staff, we know that we're already doing a lot of things outside of the job description because it's for the benefit of a student. The more that you identify with a underserved population, the more you're the person expected to handle every single one of the problems of a person of that identity. And then it compounds more and more, the more identities to identify with. And prior research has shown this for women in STEM, African Americans in faculty positions, and just all other identities, and it just gets worse the more it is. And same with disability access as well.
And yet, these individuals, because of these various sort of compounding factors that you have in addition to being first gen, oftentimes get burnt out themselves, right? Or they're just trying to make it through the system in order to gain things such as tenure. And oftentimes these first generation students still continue to struggle within the system. And so
Hence the meat grinder, the assumption of accessibility or opening up doors for populations that usually don't have access to educational opportunities. The idea behind those is if we open up the door a little bit more people will be in it. We make the assumption that because you have entered, you will also exit. However, the meat grinder is a better metaphor for this because you're putting many things in. However, not everything's coming out. There's other things coming. You lose a lot of people, or you've ground them down to turn into what you're supposed to fit into. So if you fit into perfectly what was expected of you in a system that wasn't made for you, how now that you have tenure or you've waited long enough to have enough social capital to make changes, but you are now fully ingrained in this system, not made for educational access for all populations, how are you helping fix the problem now is the biggest kind of issue with this thought process of just because we opened the doors, we've now fixed the problem.
100%. Which takes us to our central question, what we're going to be sort of wrestling with the questions for the panel are these two key ideas. The first one being that through understanding the experience of first generation students and the challenges many of which result in them leaving their programs before they finish. How do we address this within our pedagogy, right? How do we create this idea of a more caring university that factors in these individuals within first generation populations? And this notion of a return to a transformational form of education, right? How could we help foster the goals and dreams of our students like Potan so that they see education is not something to get through, right? This sort of academic hazing, if you will, but something to cherish and think fondly of as something that shaped them into a better educator so that they can instill that on their student populations as well. So with that, right, we have this notion of storytelling and relating our own experiences into the conversation, which I'll start with the first question then for the panel, which then means that I get to shut up, which is great. Could you give a brief summary of your background as a first generation student? Starting with we'll start with Jovany.
Okay, sounds good. My background, so I come from a small town from St. Anthony, so not a big population. My parents are immigrants from Mexico, and the highest education that my mom got was a GED, and then my dad finished 8th grade in Mexico, and then so then I was like the forefront of that and providing space, like me as a journey to become a first generation student. I didn't know how to get into college beforehand. I thought it was just going to be like high school. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with high school. Then I just automatically go to college. But I didn't realize there's a process to go through it. But thankfully, I had really good counselors at school and really good teachers that had been first generation students beforehand for college. So they kind of gave me that transition period. I said, hey, I want to become a teacher in the future. How do I do that? And so then they provided that space and navigated through it and kind of gave clarification and point me to directions where as a student that I didn't know that my parents that didn't know how to do it exactly, they provided that opportunity. We're saying, here's information because we know it. So that was my journey, specifically having people that were surrounded with me that were first generation and understood that maybe our parents might know, so they provided that information and made things easier, not just for me, but for my parents for filling out FAFSA, also for clarifications of what's supposed to happen and how to do certain things. So they really navigated that for me. So that was my journey. Like I always said, I thought I was going to be from high school all the way to college automatically, but that wasn't the part. So I think a big part of me was clarification, and also people that were first gen that represented and understood what to clarify things for me and my parents would be. So
Can I get the question again?
Just give a brief summary of your background as a first generation student.
Okay, so started with my father. My father has a high school diploma, but immediately went into the military afterwards. Moved out at 17, all that kind of stuff, and never went above enlisted, which means he doesn't have or he didn't get a degree with the military, and then started working for the trades. My mother has now has a bachelor's in fashion apparel design, but got it like very recently. So I am still technically a first gen student because didn't go to school until I was out of the house. I graduated high school a decade ago, which is an uncomfortable number. But I got into ISU and immediately looked around and went, I don't know what to do. Called my parents and they're like, no clue. You should ask someone. And that's actually how I found Trio. Is there anything else you need? Okay, good.
Yes, your
Next.
experience in first gen as well.
So I grew up in a household where my parents are only high school educated, and my father is Native American and my mother is white. So have this identity problem of who I want to be, and struggled with that, along with my dad being a self-taught mechanic and my mother being a stay-at-home mom that took care of the finances and the home and things like that. And so growing up, I not only was poor, but didn't have anybody to talk to about direction, and only interactions I had with other professions was when we went to the medical doctor or the dentist or my teachers or whatever it may be. So there wasn't anybody there to guide us. And so when I first entered into high school, there was a program called Upward Bound, and my mom immediately put me in Upward Bound, and we would go out during the summer and stay at a college and learn what it was like. And so that was my first introduction that I could go to college and what college was. And from there, it was more of learning to find multiple mentors in different areas to support and guide me through my education, and it was really just on myself, doing that process and learning that failure is okay. So I fail, and I fail to this day a lot, but I have lots of supports around me to help me through that process.
And speaking of mentors, that's actually leading into the next question, was open to everyone on the panel. Do you have mentors that you've clicked with and maintained that relationship? If you do, what keeps you continually invested in that mentorship relationship with your mentor?
Yeah, I'll go first. I have really great mentors. As you can see, these are my mentors. I love them so much.
I wasn't fishing for
Yeah.
compliments, but I appreciate it.
You're gonna get them.
You're gonna. So when starting here, I joined a camp program on ISU. So it's a federal government program that helped people that were migrant workers and low income. So I got joined into that program, and my advisor, Ali, so she's one of my mentors. And basically, what I saw her as a mentor is because she provided that space. She had similar backgrounds as me, like parents, migrant workers, also like immigrants, and then also being the first person ever in her family to go to college. So I saw her as a mentor, but she was also, I think what made me keep on going back to her was because her genuineness to connect with people. And so it was not just like, I'm here to provide you academically, but here to provide you as a person. So not just like, I'm a academic person, just like my body as entity. If I was like separating myself, it would be like, here's academic Jovany and here's regular life Jovany. It's like, she saw me all as one. And so then she really provided that space, especially where like trying to find resources in Pocatello, because I never like lived outside of my hometown. So she really facilitated that. And the same thing with Reinalyn and James, like they provided that space where the people that I work with, like the trio staff, I love the trio staff. And that's why I want to become a trio advisor in the future. But
And he's currently a upward bound mentor, so he's halfway there.
and ETS
Oh, yeah,
Sheffield.
that's great.
And from this trios, that's I'm trio all around. I'm with trio all around. But
Would you say you're part of a trio of?
not yet. Not yet. No, yeah, but basically that's a girl. But basically, like the reason why like the mentors that I have, like Reinalyn, James, and then Ali, her, and then I had just like they really facilitated what it means to be beyond the academic sphere of just seeing me um, as a student, as just a solely student, but as a person. And so that's the reason why I keep on going back to them, because I feel like they provide that source of security. Because I think that's a big difference between, I think as people, we always desire that connection with others. And you know, when there's a connection where it's like surface level and the connection where you could be like, oh, well, I'm only going to come here for help for academically. And and as people, I think naturally we desire that connection to be more genuine. And the people that I see as mentors have provided that space for me. Also, Maurice, I got to shout out Maurice and Kirsty, and Maggie, but provided that space to see me as to present themselves genuinely who they are, but also seeing me genuinely, and that keeps on bringing me back to them because I feel like even though I'm on my academic journey, I'm a journey in life that provides a space for me to be like, hey, I mess up. Okay, they can provide another space, like even outside of school where I'm like, hey, I'm feeling this way and everything. They're like, hey, here's an advice. You should maybe do this, and or you should look at this source. And so then I think the big aspect that keeps on giving me back to the people that I see as mentors is the genuine part of them and the human aspect of saying like, instead of just being like, oh, I've done my academics and that's it, they come and present like I've gone through this. I present this in my life and life goes wire, but it's like haywire, but it's okay. And so I think it's just the genuine part. And then there's also like a other mentor, like student mentors that I've seen. Another person that I really admire, her name is Jennifer Medallas. She was the president of my like the club that I'm in right now that I'm the president of, but she was prior to it, and she really facilitated what it means to understand what it means to grow academically, but also as your character as a person. So she really facilitated what it means to be like, hey, if you don't understand something, question it, grow with it, but also how do you interact with people to understand and to motivate yourself to become a better person. So because our club really focuses on leadership skills too, so she really facilitated that for me because she modeled that, and all the people that I see as mentors have modeled what I want to become. So that's just a little bit about mentors I see.
That's pretty all encompassing.
Yeah.
Fisk, Dr. Martin, anything to add?
Yeah, actually, one of my mentors is here. Laura,
You don't have to say my last name.
okay, because I'm sitting here going, is there,
That demonstrates your relationship.
yeah, exactly. And then Reinalyn, of course. Reinalyn was up at Trio with us when I first joined up, and we miss her still.
I normally don't have panelists that only compliment people.
Did this on purpose.
I had no involvement.
The shameless plug for ourselves.
Yeah. But when I got here to school, I really knew nothing. I didn't know the people. My expectation was, and I can't really think of a better way to put this, but a traumatic memory of high school was my only expectation of what college was going to be, and it kind of really soured it. I came here for my first semester, and I had some wonderful instructors and professors, but with how my brain views the world, I thought a lot of them were upset with me or something like that because I had said something or not done well enough. And it all kind of culminated at midterm, which was when I met Laura. Sorry. I had a meltdown, and Laura was really the one to be like, I'm a person, you're a person, come to my office. Let's talk about this. Let's figure the things out. And it wasn't until then that I just kind of took a step back and realized these are people, these are other adults. I'm an adult, which I struggle with that thought. And another lovely instructor pointed me towards trio. And train of thought is failing me. But as for, I think part of the question was maintaining
What keeps you going back to those
yeah.
same people?
It's really grounding. This semester has been one of the hardest semesters, and I'm taking 11 credits. I was taking 14, but I just get so wrapped up in my own head. I know everyone does, but just going back to them again and again and again and saying, am I crazy for this? And you know what? Sometimes they say yes. They say, yes, you are not experiencing the world through a proper lens. And I talk to them about it.
He looks specifically at me because I've done that.
Multiple times, and I am very grateful. You know, I'm very well aware that not everybody has the kind of relationship that I do with my parents, including, you know, the minorities in which I am a part of, or especially for, I should say. But, you know, they live a couple hundred miles away, and a phone call never does it justice. And I can't be going up there, you know, every time I have an issue, or, and on top of that, they don't know. And so having people who are in the system, having people who have dealt with people like me before, which sounds not great, but
But can identify with your
yeah,
issues.
can I identify my issues and help me through it. If it's academic, if it's personal, I've talked to Maurice and have probably gone TMI way too many times. You know, if it is interpersonal, if it is just financial, or resource-based. I have been stressed out about rent before, and you know what? A lot of the instructors here want you to succeed. They can see it, and they probably want to talk to you, and that is why I keep going back, is because they want you to succeed. Mm, mm. Sorry, I was gonna say something, probably shouldn't. But most of the time, it's just a dialogue you have to start.
I just want to summarize what I'm
Yeah,
hearing
yeah.
from you guys, and I can relate in the sense that first gens sometimes struggle with self-confidence and self-identity, and even the smallest thing, they perceive it as a large failure and not an opportunity to grow and be successful. Like, we should celebrate the small little things, and that's helpful. And so finding a mentor, or I have multiple mentors for different things, and having each of those, I think collectively, they embody someone who recognizes first gens as being a person and not a number, and that we have a lot more going on than just like our academics. We have other life experiences that contribute to why we might be failing emotionally or grade wise or whatnot, but they also contribute to enhancing our ability to self-advocate and build self-confidence in ourselves. And so that's what my mentors collectively do. And I try to keep those around that are positive and not focus on the negative things, because we can blow things out of proportion when it comes to that.
Multiple things all at
Yes,
once. We're great
yes.
multitaskers.
Yeah,
So,
so.
of course, what we're gathering is there's this additional work that gets placed oftentimes on mentors within faculty and staff, and that extend beyond just show up to class, get the grade that you get. And so the next question we kind of wanted to actually direct to the lovely faculty we have on the panel would be that universities oftentimes prioritize the value of the creation of publications as a metric, right, for assessing your contributions as faculty, right? And understandably, this raises the profile of the institution. We know this and keeps the faculty engaged in their respective fields. But this path to tenure can be a stressful one for emerging faculty. But also, there's this potential drive for publication can take away from that mentorship, that crucial mentorship for first-generation students. So how would you suggest to newer faculty to balance that, especially knowing that first-generation students need more contact time with faculty to succeed?
So first, I want to say that that's a classical notion, that publications are just what is important for research. I guess, research success is defined by multiple types of items, including publication, grant funding, student poster presentations, students graduating, right? And it involves teaching, mentoring, advocating at all different levels. And so for me as a first-gen faculty, when students come in, I get a lot of first-gen students and students who don't have any research experience when they come into the lab. It's more about building confidence and interacting with them and getting to know who they are as a person and using that to their advantage to be successful in the lab, not pushing it away. So establishing that connection with them, I think, is important. And once you establish the confidence and they gain the skills, then those publications and research success comes along with it. So that's what I would say. It's not just about publishing. It's about really thinking those students are persons and seeing what their gift is, their talent.
Which our panelists have already described as things that they appreciated from mentors. So next question, what is something as a first generation student or professional that you've experienced differently than your non-first gen peers as a student or as a professional?
Hello. So one of those things is, and it sounds like, well, yeah, we've been talking about this the entire time, but your knowledge base. I work alongside somebody who is a third generation artist. One of their parents went to school for art, one of their parents and one of their parents. I guess that makes them fourth, doesn't it? And they fly through everything and they're working on an academic paper and all these things. And I'm sitting here going, cool, how am I paying for this? And you know, I stress about classes because, well, I got off on a really bad foot on this class. And I don't know what to do because I can't salvage this grade. And, you know, the government's going to get mad at me because they're the ones paying for my education. And no, there's rules set in place. And when I relayed this story back to said person, they're like, well, yeah, you just take a W. Cool. What's a W?
Win.
Yeah. You know, and then they go, well, just be careful you don't, you know, get an X in a class. Cool. Now I'm terrified. What's an X? But these small things where I'm stressing out, especially over like, well, if I'm not getting an A, which is probably one of the things that my mentors have tried to pound into me, is it's a passing grade. Doesn't need to be an A. So things like that, like my experience seems to be so much more stressful because of these small bits of information that are just assumed, you know.
And especially with a lot of the FAFSA rules or financial aid rules, it's.
Don't get me
certainly-
started.
I certainly sent you a bunch of completed credits that you start, and it's just a bunch of definitions that you already don't know what they mean.
Yeah, it's like self-referential definitions and you're going through and you're like, cool, what's this? And then you go through and it's like you find a Webster dictionary definition. It's like, that's not what I want.
But what does it mean for the FAFSA?
Yeah.
I can make a comment. So I don't really know what it's like to not be a non-first generation college graduate, right? But I can say that from my experience, it's a constant trying to prove yourself all the time that stems from being first gen. So even like through college and even now as a faculty member, it's a constant proving. And that perception, everyone around you and even students come to me and be like, oh, you're so successful, or I envy you of this and that, because I had kids when I was in college. And so it's a totally different realm of things. And in my mind, I'm always trying to do that, but other ones see me as differently, and I don't see myself as that. And right now, currently, my kids, even my oldest, who's 15, sees me differently. I just realized that the other day when someone told me, we're having a conversation, it's like, she believes she can be anything she wants to be. And that's because of me. And so she wants to be an engineer and she loves math. And that's probably because she sees me where I'm at. And I didn't realize that till the other day. And so me being a faculty member, when you're saying less than 1%, not only as like a native student and so forth, it's like, oh, wow, I'm portraying this. But we're constantly still self-doubting, and it continues, I think, forever. And it really relies on
And that can be
having
a very tiring sort of position to be in, is to be known as the first gen
yes.
connection for a lot of people. You said, like you mentioned before, that a lot of students that are first gen end up coming to you, and it's because they can see that connection, right? And so, I guess a follow-up to that is with your experience as faculty, like, how do you sort of balance that sort of transaction in your brain of like, hey, I'm the person, but know that there's this pressure to be the person because I know what it means.
I don't see myself as like just that's the person. I don't define myself as that. So I just feel like I'm a mentor to all the students who come to me and try to see them equally as persons and what their background is. So I don't see that, but maybe others do.
Did you want to do the?
Oh, yeah, no, I can do the next question. We have an audience question. Sorry, I was just enthralled.
It was a really good answer.
It was something I was like conceptually thinking about, and I was like, okay, honestly, sorry, too engaged. This is why I'm never facilitating.
I think like first gen, we just want recognition,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard to get that recognition.
They'll give it to you.
So the next question is a question from the audience. This person works with a college transition program and noticed that their first generation students often do well in the fall semester, but then start to falter in the spring. Or they just get lost between the first and second years of campus. So there's a lot of drop-off points very early in their career as a student, and they would love some advice on how to provide assistance to these students beyond just reaching out and offering themselves as a point of support and advice. And then from a student perspective, what ways could the faculty provide better support for you? And then from a faculty perspective, what strategies have you considered in your own classroom to provide support to students?
So, not to step over Joe if you had something, but as somebody who is experiencing this directly, a lot of it, at least for me, is unprecedented dedication. And as I've talked to my younger brother, who is also going to school currently, maybe not the best points of separation for being truly analytical, but we're both struggling with the fact that the last time we had to focus like this was high school. And for most people, that wasn't too long ago, but it's also self-enforced, where you go to college on your choice, more or less. I understand that there's a wide range of people who, uh, see it as otherwise, but we're sitting here and we're like, why am I doing this? My parents, uh, although they have that kind of dedication in them, it's not something I saw growing up, or um, it's just very different to what I'm used to. Um, and another thing that I've noticed is just that the lifestyle is very different. Um, and the drop off between year one and year two tends to just be from, at least for me and my brother, uh, realizing that we are going too hard. We are trying for that recognition that ultimately doesn't show up in the way that we expect. And we just burn out.
Yeah, I would like to add on to that, the question of saying we see students thrive or do really good on the first semester, and then when it hits the spring, I think spring hits everybody harder, even staff members, because it's just I don't know, it's just something about it. Maybe it's daylight savings or all the above, but I think the big thing that staff members and I think just as mentors or something that separates that would be helpful, I believe. Because I think the reason why students kind of feel that way is because maybe a first generation or just students in general feel that they can do it all the way, or they're trying to finish in 4 years. And so then I think it gets a pressure. It's like that pressure to succeed. And so when you have that pressure to succeed instead of pressure to learn, it's kind of like survival of the fittest. It kind of feels like it, because then you're feeling like the only way that I'm able to get this degree and be titled myself as intelligent is by doing the most fast or being on top of everything. And so if I don't, then that makes me less intelligent. And I think as students or first generation students, we think about maybe saying if I don't do it, this reflects who I am. And I don't want to be reflected as less intelligent or not worthy of my degree or less likely to be best in my degree. So I think a big thing for staff that can do is like I said, being there, but also sharing, providing space and opportunity where you can hear them out, because you can only go so far of sharing advice. But I think as people sometimes desire just to lend an ear and remind them that you're there for them and you can hear them, but also remind them that, hey, you don't have to finish college as fast, or you don't have to finish college at the exact same time. And then to remind them just because just because you started off strong and now spring is kind of feeling a little bit wavery in between the gray lines of feeling maybe I still want to go, or maybe I don't want to go. Maybe I'm I'm not fit for this because my family didn't go to it, or because I went through that and it was just constant thing fighting back and forth. Maybe I'm not too smart enough, because in high school I had an IEP, and it was super hard for me for writing English or reading, and it was super hard. And I chose a major that requires a lot of writing and reading. So I'm just but now I'm doing really good at it because I had people that instead of just beyond the sphere of just providing resources like the writing center, which I used a lot, and the math center and everything, I think they provided that space of saying they heard me out, but also reminded me that I am intelligent, the affirmation of saying even though you have an IEP before that, you can do it because you choose to. It's all your choice. And to remind them that they're the ones guiding themselves, and to remind them that intelligence is not measured by how much you know, but how much you start to retain it and how much you actually put into practice. Because you can know so much, but not be able to implement or to grow off of it. And when you think you know everything is when you don't know everything. And so when you remind them that it's okay, everybody has different processes. Because then you look at it, we all have experienced it where somebody finished the test really fast, And then you look around and be like, man, I'm maybe the last one, or I'm like, dang, I'm like, maybe I got my whole questions wrong. I'm rethinking life and being like, okay, I failed this test. And then turns out maybe you didn't, maybe you did, either or. But just remind them that I think a big thing that first generation students or just students in general question is that, am I intelligent enough to continue? And I think that stops people because like they see themselves, if they don't get a good grade, or if they don't get the responses back, or if life doesn't go a certain way, then that means that they're failing. And to remind them that with growth there comes uphills and everything, but it doesn't mean your growth comes, you're going up. And even though sometimes it goes down in a sense, you're still growing in that direction. Like you might, for a week, you might grow 2 weeks fast, and then for like 3 months you're not growing at all, but I grew like this much. But I'm like, growth is growth anyways. So to remind them that even though we're there, the process is everybody goes their own flow, but to remind them that they can do it because they as a person are not defined by what everybody else says, but by their actions and what they choose to do. And if their actions are that sometimes may feel like they're not doing good, that's okay to recognize and be like, I'm not okay right now. How can I manage it? So I think just provide a space to hear, and also remind them that they are intelligent and they are capable, because as a person, we can do anything that we put our minds to. I think it's just affirmations and just hearing. I think that's a big thing that staff or just mentors can do in general, or just students, it's just affirmation and hearing out.
And then Dr. Martin.
Yeah, I have two perspectives,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I think it comes down the line of what you both said is that there isn't a set path to attain your degree. There are multiple paths, and that road can be very challenging and bumpy and curvy. It doesn't matter, but as long as along the way you take that and grow with it, and you'll get there. So it doesn't really matter if somebody's faster than you, but you're gonna get there with your supports in that. And so that mindset comes along. And I will say it took me 6 years to get my undergraduate. Not because I wasn't smart, it was more self-doubt. I applied to, large undergraduate institutions. I got into them. I was from California, so University of California system. I went to orientation. But I looked around and doubted myself and said, I can't do this, Mom. I'm going back home. And so I went back home and went to community college. I thought I was a failure. I failed some classes, believe me. But I learned that it's okay to get a C. It's not the end of the world. I learned the information and I could retain it, so it's fine. And I'm still here to, with a PhD, and it took me a long time to get my PhD too, more like 7 years. But I got there and I'm here still. And so as a faculty member, the perspective is like, you just need to be flexible and understand that students have different learning abilities and are at different levels in their education and different life stages. And so being flexible and understanding that, and reiterating that even if you fail, it's okay. You can grow from that and still pass your class and you'll be good to go. And the other aspect is that from faculty should have multiple different types of assessment for students. Not everyone is good at taking exams, or even like a written exam, have different types of those projects and things like that. And as far as retaining students, I think making those students feel they're part of a community and understanding that life exists, and just saying little things like, oh, what are you doing this summer? And taking interest in like, oh, you're getting a job. Oh, that's great. And I could relate to that because I have had those service jobs and that, but oh, well, you want to go to med school. Well, how about, did you think about shadowing during that time or whatnot? So taking an interest in what they want to do with their career and helping out makes a big deal, and saying, oh, see you next semester. So, and that just makes them feel good, I think, to come back and return, that you believe in them.
I don't really have research, and this is more anecdotal, but I think as a first generation student myself, I think sometimes we get so invested in kind of the barriers and challenges that first gen students face that we overlook some of the practical things sometimes too, like increasingly as the demand for college degrees is linked to having high-paying jobs and good-paying jobs. A lot of students, I think, leave school a year in or 2 years in because they need to get jobs and help at home, or they need to help their family or their siblings or whatever that looks like. And I think there are a lot of those practical elements that contribute as well. And I've seen a lot of wonderful flexibility from faculty here at ISU. And, well, don't drop. Let's see how we can, how we can work with this and, accommodate what you need. And I think that the faculty, by and large, in my experience, has done really well here with adapting to those practical needs as well.
And just for our Zoom audience, just in case you couldn't hear that, it was essentially a comment from a fellow first-gen faculty member talking about they've noticed other first-gen students here at ISU struggling with other practical barriers like needing to support family, having to take on extra jobs that make it difficult to only focus on academics, and an appreciation that several ISU faculty provide flexibility for these students such that there's just a little bit more flexibility in assignment deadlines and just working out individually on a case-by-case basis with the student what they need.
At this time, we have a couple minutes, but we would like to open it up for questions from the audience that are in here or online. You can also.
So I'm not teaching anymore, but the one thing that always shocked me was students. And I think in my case, it was first-gen students often that they might fail my class and then avoid me in the hallway and then avoid me in the bathroom. And then if they see me on the quad, they'll walk the other way. There's like this shame. Like they carry this shame. And there's absolutely not an ounce of judgment on my part. Like if you came back, I'd just get to have you as a student again. And like I can't fix that. So I was just wondering if you have, because I don't carry it. Right? If you had any advice for that.
I can most certainly understand this because I was almost in that position. And I felt a lot of guilt over it. And again, I realized that not everybody has the relationship I do with my parents, but I was talking with my dad, and my dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "Why do you think they care about you?" And in the way only my dad can, he made it sound both, like, why are you, why are you self-aggrandizing to the point where you think they're going to be disappointed, but also, why do you think they care about you, as in the positive? And not very many people can actually see that quote unquote wasted potential is not something that most instructors really do have disappointment over.
Yeah, because it's from the faculty perspective, it's a recognition of, oh, you failed my class, but if you try again, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the pieces that a student is missing.
Again, I think most people don't realize that your instructors want you to succeed, despite the fact that there are those ones that say 70% of people fail my class and they seem proud of it. Like not
Those are few and far between.
Yeah, it's not very many professors who do that, or instructors. And most of them say, hey, there's, this thing here, let's figure it out. Let's get you to pass. And I don't think many people have that insight into instructors.
Also, I have from my perspective is both having teaching classes, but then also being a student and a first gen student at that is the professors that I oftentimes avoided were the ones that I looked up to and respected the most. And it was in my mind, that I didn't want to disappoint them, and why bug you with my presence when I'm a disappointment to you, right? You know, and it's a sad thing to look at, but that's the reality of it, is this pressure of wanting to perform at a level that faculty member sees you as somebody worthy of their time, right? And so to sort of answer your question from my vantage point, because I've been on the other side of that, where I'm like, hey, can you just connect with me a little bit. You are worthy of my time. Is I think just continue to make those overtures if you can, and just show them that it doesn't matter if you got a failing grade in their class or did bad in an assignment. You know, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that I think students are looking for, is that connection, somebody that they see in such a high esteem. Right.
Which is why you and I have both approached both advising and teaching from a very humanizing perspective, and immediately talking about our failures.
Yes.
But I am saying they literally run away.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
I think
I
it's-
can't stop that.
I think it's just like human nature. Like,
Yeah.
I think as people, we kind of avoid, it's like fight or flight. And you're like, if I failed something, you don't want to, it's like when you had a bad conversation with somebody and you're like, I just made myself look not the best. And then you're like, oh, as people, I think it's just culturally, maybe people want to avoid and be like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm vulnerable in this sense. So I'm like, maybe gonna avoid and drive. But I think it's just personality people. Cause like when I felt my thing, I kind of felt uncomfortable, but then I was realizing, I was like, you know what? I felt that, but I'm gonna go talk to them again. And so I'm like, and I'm just like, I think it was just like personality wise of just saying like, okay, like, I think it's how the student or just people in general view as what it means as failure. So then people, when they feel like they failed, then people feel vulnerable. And I think it's maybe human nature and characteristics. People maybe be like, well, I don't feel vulnerable. So maybe people avoid that. But I think the best thing to do is just like remind them like, he's like, hey, it was like I appreciate you guys being in my class and know that I see you guys around. And I, even though like maybe some didn't do as well as other, I think I still appreciate you as a person. And I would be glad to have you again. So kind of give them that space of welcomingness. So then even though they might avoid you, and then you run into them and you talk to them, they still feel safe, because then some teachers like, oh, how you doing? And they still don't feel safe because it's not the welcoming environment. So when you kind of present yourself vulnerable, and then even though they're trying to run away and you run into them, they'll start to be less tensed up, because they're thinking of like, that's the only thing thinking in the back of their mind, because I think it's just human nature of like that vulnerableness.
And thank you so much, everyone. I know we're over
I mean,
time.
that's okay. I want to give Dr. Eller's had her hand up for a while.
For a
now.
while.
If we could do one more question,
Yeah.
and then we'll thank everybody for their time. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hold on one second, Amanda, sorry.
Oh.
Maren had put a question. in
Oh, okay.
earlier
Two
that-
questions. You okay with 2 questions?
Cool. So yeah, Mary's question was, any advice on supporting and retaining online students who can so easily ghost the professors? I'm guilty of this myself, so I'm curious.
That one is kind of rough. Both of my online classes, I did not finish. Because it's just so hard to communicate and have that like connection.
What was the question again?
It was, any advice on supporting and retaining online students who can so easily ghost their professors?
Ghost?
Yeah,
Like-
so they just don't communicate with their professors because it's fully online and asynchronous, so you're not actually meeting with them.
Sorry, one real quick, and I will also say, logging into, my ISU to get to Canvas, then go to inbox just to be like, hey, can I get an extension? Like, that is such high friction. And it feels like such a better choice to just go, nah.
I will steal some advice from one of my mentors who's in the room right now, Dr. Shu, who did a small presentation on keeping engagement in an online class, and it was purely through memes, which I completely vibed with, and then started utilizing in my current online class in my late 8-week, where it's not the most interesting subject in the world to talk about. Here's an online class on college learning strategies for how to pass your math classes.
So give yourself a personality.
Correct. There's a sword in the background of my office.
Yeah.
And like Funko Pops.
Oh, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Collections top tier.
So the online retention is very difficult to begin with, but a lot of what our panel has said is the things that they remember the most is when the professor has humanized themselves. And that's where the connections start.
Lower that friction point.
Mhm.
Cool. So we had Dr. Eller for a question, right?
Hello. Thank you for staying a few minutes late. I want to thank you all for participating in this panel. I really enjoyed listening. I too am first generation high school graduate, college student, and I didn't have a lot of support. I have told people that I had a high school counselor who said that college wasn't for people like me, and I rebelled and went to college, and now I have a PhD. So that kind of drove me. And so, yes, I've appreciated this. I've noticed we often, because of the challenges, a lot of times we fall into deficit thinking and just thinking about the challenges and how much harder some things are as first gen students. And so it kind of works nice to have this be the last question. I'd like to flip that around and have you think about, what are your rock star powers? What are your superpowers for getting through college as a first gen student? What do you think makes you better at this than maybe some others who didn't have this challenge? And thanks again.
So I would like to start,
Yeah.
and it's,
Go for
I mean, I don't know if it's ironic. I don't actually know which word I'd use here, but being loud. It's, it's, for me, what has got me through is being loud, telling people I don't know, and being loud about it. And people who know love sharing information. And so when you're loud about saying, I don't know, they say, let me tell you.
Mhm.
Get
That's
yourself,
the best part of higher ed.
isn't it?
All of the educators are around you.
And getting myself stuck into situations. I accidentally became the president of the Fine Arts Club. Oh, you don't know.
That's a later conversation.
I essentially drifted off in the middle of class, and I heard somebody say, we would like freshmen to get on board with this. And I'm like, I'm a freshman. Hello. And I was really loud about it. And they're like, awesome. Thank you for taking up the mantle of the club. And I was like, oh no.
Wait.
So get stuck into it. I understand that not everybody can be loud, but surround yourself with people, and you are a first gen student. You don't know enough to know that the questions you are asking seem quote unquote silly to people who do know. And that fear, I feel, holds a lot of us back of looking silly, looking stupid, or being afraid of retribution because we don't know enough to know quote unquote something simple. Ask those questions, because the people who do tend to change the world.
Dang. Wow. Let me follow that. I think would be like a big, I guess, superpower would be mine is communication and honesty. I think for me, because like I always stated before, I had an IEP growing up since like elementary all the way to high school, and I still utilize the disability services here. And I think the biggest part was for me where questioning where it's like, okay, I do not understand. And my mom says like, my mom's a person where she has a big personality of like really loving. Everybody at her work calls her mom because she just has that mom personality. But she's like, you're paying for this. You gotta just vocalize it. I'm gonna be like, you're right, mom. You're right. And so like literally I communicate and be like, hey, I don't understand this. And I just raise up my hand, and I recognize a lot of my peers are really kind of I guess timid, or maybe not have the confidence to vocalize it. So for me, I think it's communication, and just like realizing and being honest with myself, and I don't understand something. and being transparent and also like communicating to my professors even off hours and getting to know them as a people, like as a person, as themselves, but communicating and be like, to be honest, like I don't understand this and it's not going in my brain. Do you have chances to provide me with sources to become a better at this, especially for my writing and reading? Because I'm like, I see my other peers that are the exact same degree as me excelling really great, and they're really great on retaining information, especially for history. And I'm like, how can I retain all this information all at once? And so then they provided me, it's like, hey, you can maybe do this. So I just be honest to be like, I don't understand it, and that's okay. But the difference that I'm making is being honest and taking the action step after. So I think that's my superpower, I guess, communication, honesty, to build that growth inside of me instead of just being saying at the bare honesty and not doing an action step. Because we can be honest and then be like, I should probably do this honest, but then after, nothing after. So I think it's just honesty and communication. I think that would be a big thing compared to other stuff.
Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say persistence and determination will build resilience and success. And biggest thing is being, like you said, you guys both said, I think self-advocating. Like you have to ask, and even if you think the answer is going to be no, it's okay. At least you asked and you know the answer
And now you know.
of what it is, right? I mean, think of it as professors are like your parents or your guardian, and you ask them to do something or explain something, you might not get the answer you want, but you got an answer. And so you just have to ask.
I do want to add to
push.
that.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, the answer is no.
Yeah.
If you do ask, the answer might be no.
I wonder where you learned that from.
My dad.
Thank you to our panel. I appreciate you all so much. Really fantastic stuff today. Thank you. Thank you all for attending online and both here in person. If you would like to continue these conversations, just a reminder, our teaching symposium is on Friday from 9 to 11. And we're going to dig into the data here at ISU and think about these things in a lot more detail. So please join us. Thank you all.